Breaking theater news. The unofficial non-equity list has officially become a thing of the past, meaning no unofficial non-equity lists will be honored at open calls. But what does that mean for you as an actor? I'm Narée, your theater older sister, and I'm gonna tell you all the things I wish I knew when I started musical theater so that you can have an easier time getting started in this industry. If that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure you like and subscribe for more. So let's talk equity and non-equity, and why this list update is probably going to be a huge deal for you and me. Before I tell you about the list situation, let's talk about what it means to be equity versus non-equity. There is a labor union for actors known as the Actors Equity Association, or AEA. The full breakdown for them states that they represent professional actors and stage managers in live theatrical performance, working to negotiate wages, improve working conditions, and provide benefits, meaning you have certain guaranteed protections by joining equity, such as health plans, job security, and minimum salaries. Though this is all very exciting, keep in mind that the key word here is labor union. The union is not just about perks, but being an active member that fights for the rights of everybody involved in it. Every single Broadway show that you see is associated with the Actors Equity Association, meaning that all members must join the union in order to work on these shows. Members of this labor union are known as equity members, or just equity for short. You might see mentions of them in casting breakdowns for ECCs and EPAs, meaning equity chorus call for the ensemble of a show, or equity principal auditions for the principal roles in a show. Equity members are only allowed to audition for and accept contracts with companies that abide by equity rules, as in they literally cannot work for a show that does not honor equity rules. There's even a list on the Actors Equity Association website called the Do Not Work List that warns its members against projects that are not okayed by the union. To be non-union essentially means that you are a freelance artist, meaning you can accept any kind of contract that you want and work any place that you wish. The downside is you are not guaranteed the same rights as equity members. You're kind of at the mercy of whatever production company that you sign a contract with. One of the main benefits that people talk about with equity is that they guarantee you the right to be seen when you go to an open call. And that's where the list situation comes into play. Equity actors are guaranteed the right to be seen at ECCs and EPAs. Non-union actors, not so much. We only get seen after equity members get seen, and that's only if the casting team decides that they have enough time to see non-equity or they want to see non-equity. And even that's not guaranteed. So instead of having a guaranteed time slot like the equity folks have, non-union actors would literally line up a block around the studio that the auditions would take place, like at midnight the night before, literally camping out on the streets of NYC just for the chance of being seen. And when the studio finally opened the next day, people would start an unofficial list of who was there first, so they could all be considered for an audition should they decide that they were going to see non-equity actors that day. The problem with putting this list in the hands of actors is that they would not only sign their name, but the names of 15 other friends and roommates and other people that were not physically in line with them. So by the time the list gets to the end of the line, there's barely any chance that those people will be seen. Sounds like an unfair nightmare? It's because it is. That's why this new sign-up sheet rule is such a big deal. Non-equity people have been begging for a better, fairer way to sign up for auditions. Now you are only allowed to sign your name on that list, which opens up a lot more room for other people to sign up. And that list cannot leave the monitor's desk, or else the whole list will be disqualified. They also only want non-equity people to show up when the building opens, so nobody's starting lines that wrap around the building at midnight, which wasn't a sustainable practice for anybody in the first place. Now that you know about equity and the updated non-equity list rules, you probably have questions like, well, should I join the equity, or is it better to stay non-union now, and why? Let's get into it. Starting with, how do you join the actors union? There are a few ways for non-union actors to join equity. These are the three most common. Getting a job that outright offers you your equity card. If you're non-union and you go to an open call for a Broadway show and you happen to get seen, called back, and then surprise, they offer you a contract, you can't work on that show unless you are part of the union. So what usually ends up happening is that the production team will offer you union status in order to have you do the show. Transfer over from SAG-AFTRA. There are actually lots of actors unions, and SAG-AFTRA, the Screen Actors Guild, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists allows their members to join Actors Equity through a reciprocal agreement with certain conditions, such as being in good standing for a year and having worked as a principal performer. So if you're a member of this union, you can technically transfer over and also be an AEA member. And last but not least, open access. Have you ever worked on a show professionally within Equity's geographical jurisdiction? You can apply for a full membership at Equity just with that, which is why so many non-union actors seek out work at bigger regional theaters. I know this sounds so exciting, but please hold your horses and hear me out on this next question, because it might change your mind on joining. And that question is, should I stay non-union? Let me preface this by saying I am a non-union member at this time, just like you. I have no previous experience being equity, but it's an opinion I have formed after asking myself and countless industry professionals the same question for literally over a decade. I want to become a union one day. So here's what I've determined that has influenced my decision to stay non-union just a little while longer. My location. Right now, I don't live in New York City, which means there are no open calls for ECCs and EPAs anywhere remotely near me, because I don't have a immediate access to the locations of the events and the auditions that Equity puts on, personally, I don't feel like it's worth joining until I move to New York City. Most tours are non-union. No, really, a lot of national tours are becoming non-union. Remember how we said that Equity members can only accept work with production teams that abide by Equity rules? Non-union tours will not take Equity actors. And though Equity tours do still exist, I know my type is an actor, and I know that those shows are not really right for me, but the non-union tours are a different story. I'm extremely right for those shows. Because I want the experience of having a national tour on my resume, I'm going to stay non-union for now to keep those opportunities alive. And lastly, building my experience. I qualify for open access admission with Equity, and I would hope so because I've been doing this for well over a decade. I know I'm good at what I do, and I'm going to continue pursuing this career path. However, becoming an Equity member means auditioning with other Equity members, as in people who have stacked resumes with nothing but Broadway credits and Tony Award nominations and/or wins. I'm not saying I'm not a talented performer, but what I am saying is if it's between me and Stephanie J. Block for a role, the casting team is probably gonna want to go with somebody that has more of that Broadway experience under their belt. And that person isn't me, just yet. And that's my 2 cents / speedrun on Equity and the non-union list that just came out. This is a huge shift for non-Equity performers. Will it make things easier? Harder? That depends on how casting teams handle it and how we as non-union actors behave with these new rules in place. But one thing's for sure, it is a step towards a fairer process. If you found that helpful, make sure you like and subscribe for more things that will make your performing life easier. Drop a comment and let me know what your dream show is.